Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, mostly Quindy, sometimes Justin, and occasionally John. Hi. Hello, everyone. Hello, happy Thursday. It's almost the weekend, right? Almost. I'm so sleepy. Were they? I did not look. Oh, is it time to check up on the Kickstarter then? Hold on. Let's go to Dragon Cam, and we can have the dragon smile at us while we check up on the Kickstarter. I was not checking the Kickstarter this morning. I was looking at my Overwatch 2 news. So let's see here. Kickstarter. Bone 6. Hello, everybody. Hello, all the people coming into chat. Mad Zapper and Tekavil. Let's say Kavil with only a slight T in the beginning. Yeah, I wondered about that. I saw the lighthouse come through last night. And wow, it really did. Dang. Interesting. I think the lighthouse is actually one of the most interesting things in the Kickstarter. 3. Let's see what we're at. Let's look at our map. Ooh, we made progress. So now we're on bugbears, right? We're trying to get bugbears. So was the lighthouse a stretch goal? Like, is lighthouse like totally unlocked or? Okay. Yeah, I was as long as if the lighthouse gets unlocked, then I'm in. Let's see here. I haven't looked at updates. So I probably should look at updates to see the lighthouse. Where are we? Is it in the latest update or is it the surprise reveal? Yes, it is the surprise reveal. Okay, 500k away. I see. So if you haven't seen this, you have to see it because it's really cool. It's got stairs going around the outside. It's got a really cool like big fire pot on the top, and best of all, it has a walrus. Like there's an undead dude with a lantern, and it looks like the door is boarded up, but it's pretty thin. But it has a walrus. Dang it! It has a walrus. No, we don't know who's gonna sculpt it. We'll find somebody appropriate. But yeah, so that is a $30 option, which is a pretty darn good for a big terrain piece. A very cool terrain piece. But yeah, so I would think I'm going to have to toss another $30 into my pledge. But yeah, so that's really cool, and that's locked until 1890. So we will see. We're at about 1350 right now. Get back to campaign. And bugbears unlock at 1375. So we've got about 26k to our next unlock. As is pointed out, the 48-hour bump may drive traffic. Yeah, if it's got a walrus, it would seem to be a Weeby project. I'm just saying. Because, Weeby, walruses. He loves them. So, yes. All right, so let's see here. We want to continue our horn highlighting today, because these aren't bright enough. And then, yeah. Yes, that's true. I mean, remember, guys, always remember that when you kid Reaper about stuff, Reaper absolutely does meme. And so there's always the chance that if it memes hard enough, that Reaper will make it a reality, will make your meme a reality. I can't guarantee it, but, Reaper does meme. Absolutely. Unlike some companies, Reaper absolutely does meme. So, yeah. Yes, yes, there we go. So you'll want to look at the, hello, Smoth. So we're just chatting about the Reaper Kickstarter, Smoth. They just revealed the lighthouse, a really cool, spooky, haunted lighthouse on the latest kind of surprise goal. So we were all like chatting about it. But yes, I was just saying that Reaper absolutely does meme, and that's why. I mean, they're fine, Kodiak, but they're not bright enough to me. That's just not as bright as like the teeth. Like they're just not as much as I want, especially if you compare them. Like if you compare them to the horns here, it's close, but the horns here still have points of more brightness, and so for that, I want it to all to go together. I would just start with a lighter brown, but I wouldn't start with a light brown Big Apple. The thing is, you still want those dark ridges in there. You still want to be able to see all the different parts. So if I was wanting to do horns lighter, I would just start with maybe what my midtone was with the mixture of these two colors, and then I would go up with this and white. So I wouldn't start with walnut. I would start a step or two up. They're not going to stay dark though. Be aware, guys. This is not, this is all work in progress. Y'all are staring at my green horses. I used to call them my green horses. Staring at my green horses thinking it's the end product. So when I painted wood elves, when I was first getting back into, seriously into painting, my horses started out green because I underpainted them green because I wanted some of the green to show through so that they'd be wood elf horses and not just regular old horses. But all of my gamer buddies were all just like, why are you painting green horses? They just couldn't get over it. They thought it was done. I would not, it's up to you, Big Apple. I always mix my base tones. Like, I have a very specific set of colors that I use for bone. And for me, saddle brown is too purplish reddish. And ruddy flesh is possible, but it is a little pink and it's a little orange for me. So you can experiment all you like. It's just, if you ask me for advice, I'm going to tell you to use more like bone colors, which are more neutral. The minute you start using a color like saddle, which is purplish red, or ruddy flesh, which is orangish, the minute you start using either of those colors, you're introducing that color, that orange or that purpley, to your model. And so if you don't use neutrals, you run into the possibility of the color really clashing. And that's why I'm very careful about the colors I use for bone and for teeth and for all that, is I don't want to put something on there that clashes. And I've seen plenty of people do this over the years just because they were inexperienced. So be very careful that if you do use saddle brown, maybe add a touch of green to neutral it out. Or if you do use ruddy flesh, add a touch of blue to, again, neutral it out. This is actually part of a fast palette. Nodbone. Didn't we discover that Nodbone was part of the Gloom and Grave fast palette, Kundi? So this is, if it is Gloom and Grave, this is like a fast palette that is absolutely useful. Like all of it is really useful. And I would, above all other fast palettes, I believe this is the king of fast palette. And just to give you an idea, for those of you who are new to my stream, I liked that fast palette so much I painted an entire model only with the colors in the fast palette. And some white. I think I added some. I did use pure white. I do reserve the right to do pure white. So this guy, our Crimson Herald. It depends, Big Apple. Like the reason, okay, if you're gonna line, then yeah, I'd say it's dark enough to start with if you want really, really pale horns. I always like to darken down the root of the horn a little bit. So, your mileage may vary. Figure out what works for you. But you could definitely start with this and go up from there. I I don't know. I like to start just a tad darker, but that's just me. Again, I like to have dimension in my bone. The problem is if you start too light, then you're not going to have enough range between your shadow, your midtone, and your highlight for it to give it real depth. So again, your mileage may vary, but this is painted all with just the Gloom and Grave Fast palette. That's it. That's all we used with plus a little bit of pure white. That's it. So that's why you should buy the Fast palette. This is why, and this color is in the Fast palette, and it is my favorite, my new favorite for bone. If you have the old Stained Ivory, it's close, but I think this is actually a touch warmer and browner, and I like it better. So, all right, so now let's bring up these horns a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, you always need contrast, Big Apple. Always need contrast. So even if, and you'll be surprised at how light these horns end up looking. I mean, look at how light the teeth ended up. I started those with walnut. It's all in how much surface area you add. And half the reason I started and I'm using all these intermediate shades is because I want the cool blended effect. So now we're going to go up to Nod Bone plus white. Good, Turgeon. Oh, of your new puppy, Darkfather? Cool. Is that the Reaper Discord or my Discord? I'm not sure if the Reaper Discord had a pet channel. I mean, they're very popular, so maybe. Alrighty, where is my water? There it is. Always keep your happy bottle of water around. So that you can control the amount of fluid going into your paint. Reaper Discord, okay. Don't procrastinate, just jump in. Remember, bone can be different colors. You could do a black and kind of gray and pearly white color too. You don't have to do like, the reason I go for cream is that it's a neutral. Again, it's a neutral that's not going to clash with anything, especially if I start it with warm dark browns. But yes, do not think, do. Do not try, do. Execute. All right, so we've got a slightly lighter color here. I might want to make it just a little bit more. This is a 5-2. I'm going to come in and just see what, oh yeah, that is a little bit lighter. Boop. So you can see that ridge of light that I just put down that. If I really want to, I can make those dashes a little more stand out. This is a 4-1 Nod Bone to pure white. This will be saved as a VOD for Reaper Blutimus. I'm going to do something for my Patreon specifically about bone and horns. That's what some people had asked me to do. But this will also be a VOD. I won't be doing any really specific topics for my YouTube for my fundamentals series for a while, because the fundamentals is more about technique. And I've got a lot of things to cover before I ever get to like a specific fundamentals video. Like there's so much I have to cover for fundamentals. This is not even funny. Bone is not even on the list yet. So maybe by the time we get to like next year, bone might be on the list. I'm not sure. It depends on how many videos I can do for my YouTube. But I am going to do bone for my Patreon, and that is going to be relatively soon, as I have a list of about 8 or 10 topics that some people have handed me lately off of my Patreon and this stream. There's stuff they would like to see, that holes I haven't filled yet on the Patreon. So yeah, we'll do that first. Yeah, it's the VOD will go up and it will be posted on the Reaper YouTube channel as well. Correct. So, although there are strengths and weaknesses to each thing, to each format, right? So here we have a lot of chat in between, and I don't concentrate usually on these in covering the topic like I'm teaching a class, right? We just kind of do stuff. I explain what I'm doing, but it's not focused, and there's a lot of it. Whereas on the Patreon, I can go into a lot more focus, and I also can do PDFs, which is something I can't do on here. So yeah, it's all what format you want your Anne in, pretty much. I will say the Patreon is an excellent value right now because we've been doing it for over 3 years. So there is a ton of material on it right now. And yes, when you sign up for a level, you do get all past material for that level. Hey, Rex. Ooh, and Quinny can even tell you when the VOD will be up. That's how cool she is. Oh, there we go. Yes, there is all my links, so you can find me on the YouTubes if you want the Fundamentals series. I also have a couple of my own VODs up there, but my own stuff, the VODs I put up from my own painting on Saturdays, those are usually competition level paintings, so I'm usually covering stuff that's maybe a little bit more advanced, but can still be fun to watch. There is some stuff on my Patreon that is more advanced for sure as well. But I try to make it a nice mix of beginner to intermediate with a few advanced topics. I just want this highlight on these horns to make them... But you can see how they stand out so much better now compared to here, how this looks better, right? That's pretty much puppies. Sweet but a little terror. Speaking of which, my own puppy might be getting to be more than a glint in the ether today as the breeding is happening. The first breeding is happening with our puppy mommy. So the puppy may actually be a multi-celled organism by the end of today. Yeah, so, I mean, this goes back to the rule we used to have at Paint Club at Sue Wachowski's store, where it's the Imps mini painting group in Chicagoland. But the rule was pretty much highlight it till you think it looks good, but then pop 2 extra highlights on it. So this is the first of my, because you thought it looked good, now this is the first of the 2 extra highlights. And it does make, as you can see, a huge difference. A lot of people, the mistake they make is they stop when they're like, oh, it looks good, but it could look even better. And again, my thin paint here and my brush that's been unloaded a lot are helping me get these tiny little ridges in here. Now, I want to thin this way down and do some very specific layering. So, thinning. You don't want to thin it to glaze level. Layering is usually more like a wash level. It's somewhere between wash and glaze. So I'm doing this. You can see how thin it is by how much it fell off the side of the water here. And I'll see if this is too much or if it's about right. What I want to do is I want to bring up the highlight on the top of this. So I'm actually going to get a little closer and I'm going to refocus. There. That is perfectionism speaking, Kerniko, and you should swat that perfectionism right out of your life. Also be nicer to yourself. You deserve it. Everybody should be nicer to themselves. Like, I get into this, so I'm going to just paint a little bit of a lighter. This is essentially counts as a spot glaze. And it's because I want the top of the horns to be lighter. But I don't want a really solid color. I want to lay down, like I did before. Yesterday, I did a glaze over the entirety of the horn. But here, I'm just concentrating on the top of the horn. I don't want to wipe out my texture, but I want to lighten up the entire top of the horn. And so I'm essentially painting a glaze on manually, very much only where I want it to lighten up. And I'm stopping right along this ridge because the horn is angled and then it cuts down. So I want that ridge to still kind of be a demarcation line, but you can see how everything is a little lighter up top now. But yes, I run into this in my writing when I get too critical with myself. Like, ideas and motivation tend to dry up, whereas when I just sit down and spend some time with my writing in a very open way, then ideas and motivation like pop up in my head constantly. And the same thing is true of painting. If I put too much pressure on myself, I don't feel like painting. But the minute I back off and just let myself enjoy it, I feel like painting again. And it doesn't matter what level of project I'm working on. That's true. So you can see how we're lightening up the top of that horn without dropping the texture. And we're keeping that darker shadow on this side to show the shape of the horn. Oh, we already talked about the lighthouse. We're actually too late. But yeah, so my bottom line would be stop being too hard on yourself. 1 second, guys. I'm just going to mix up another highlight. Stop being hard on yourself. Step back. Enjoy the hobby. And you will find that your motivation to paint comes right back. I'm going to take 1 big drop of this bone mix. I'm going to add 2 drops of white to it. See if that's enough to really bring it up. I don't want to go up to a pure white because the horns, I don't want them to like look shiny. I just want them to have a nice bright highlight on the tops when I'm done. So the difference between my colors right now, that's the one we started with, and this is the one that we have. So this is our, of the 2 additional highlights to make things look even better, this is the second. Now, because I added in 2 drops of pure white, I'm going to drop even more water in. And we'll see if that's too much. But probably not, because pure white takes a lot of water to thin down to the point where it's not leaving brush strokes. Oh, nice, Karniko. Sweet. Yeah, keep working at it, Karniko. You are totally admirable in the way that you are tackling recovery. I think that everyone could take a lesson from you. You're very inspiring yourself. All right, so let's take this new color and see what I can do with it. Hello, Chaarondar. But yes, if anybody didn't see the lighthouse is cool. I'm going to hold off and see how close we get to the lighthouse in the next day. Once the 48-hour reminder email goes out. I try to avoid putting money into the avoiding putting money into the Kickstarter here until if I'm sure that I'll be able to actually get the thing I want. Although I guess I could put $30 in and just put it assign it to the Fae expansion if we don't hit the lighthouse. So I'm coming in again with a little bit more texture here. Notice that even with all the huge amount of water I put into that, I'm still getting linear marks with my brush strokes on this white, because pure white just takes an obscene amount of thinning and it will still be visible. It lets you do really fine underpainted details with it if you are so inclined. I think Karniko is determined to get back to where she was or exceed it. And I think that that mindset is huge. So good job, Kerniko. Keep on keeping on. So I just want another level of highlight up here on the top of the horn to kind of back up the glaze that I just did and suggest that the top of the horn is much lighter. Yeah, I'll just assign it to the Fae expansion. I want the Fairy Dragon. And there are a couple of other things on that expansion that I would be happy to paint for stream. So again, just bringing in that extra highlight to make the top of the horn look lighter. There's a lot of models in the Fae expansion that I don't want necessarily, so I'm kind of annoyed that I have to buy the whole expansion to get the dragon. If I must be honest, but I will do it because dragon. Because I've been asking for a fairy dragon for literally years. A life-size fairy dragon, that is. So now I have to pony up. I need to vote with my wallet. This is the kind of brushstroke that you need, Smoth, to get like fine detail. Like, it's very light, it's very delicate, and you hardly see the brush even distort. Like the pressure on the brush is hardly even making the tip move. And this is the kind of like thing you want to start practicing if you want to be able to do really fine detail and texture. There. So now you guys can see what I was kind of going for. You can still see it even from afar. You can definitely see that the top is lighter and the bottom is darker. This is also why probably why I don't blunt the tips on my brushes. Like, that just doesn't happen to me. Because if you keep a very light touch, then you're not going to adversely impact the tip. Now I want this edge here to be a little lighter. And there are a lot of very excellent painters who are more heavy-handed than me with the brush. So it's not like you have to paint like me. It's just an option. But I like to draw my attention to this stuff because it's something that a lot of people don't talk about. They don't talk about the weight of the brushstroke. Like they do in canvas painting all the time, but they don't talk about it in miniature painting. But this is something you can get, Chaarondar. This is something you can learn. No matter how heavy-handed you are, you can absolutely learn a lighter touch. It's just practice and muscle memory. Oh, nice, Babel. Last day of classes for the year. Sweet. I don't think Quindy's got it, Pendrake. We can't give it out. The Painting Big Discord is for patrons only. So it comes out, like, you get it if you sign up for the Discord. So otherwise I do not give the link out. It's one of the bonuses of being in my Discord or being on my Patreon. When I started out, I wanted to make something special for my patrons to say thank you for becoming a patron, because my Patreon is my job. Like it's the job that keeps me going. I would have to get a real job if it wasn't a thing. So the Discord is definitely like a thank you patrons for supporting me. So yeah, so if you want to be on the Reaper Discord is awesome, and you should definitely go there. But my Discord is for patrons. And I do hop on there a couple times a week and try to chime in. And look at the latest stuff that people have put up for us to buy in Supplies Talk. And the cute animals. Look at the cute animals too. You know, I think I need an extra. I highlighted these horns yesterday with the brown, but I can't go straight up to this beige or it'll look way too stark. So actually what I'm going to do, is I'm going to start working on the gold here, I think. Let's work on the gold horn caps and see what we can do. Let me see here. I need some shield brown, I think. Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know. Now I need to figure out where I stuffed my shield brown. It's my latest color to use for an NMM base. Is it a daily struggle to post cat pictures on the Discord? Yeah, right. Patreon, Reaper, YouTube, Twitch, writing, puppies, fiance, Rex. Add a few items to that to-do list. Oh, and the dog club that I do genetic analyses for and serve on the board of. Let's just put that in too. Busy doesn't even approach. Kodiak, you should, if you already have a Discord, it should give you a link or send you a link once you've joined the Patreon. If not, I can invite you. I will send you a welcome email within the first couple days, typically. And you can always respond back and ask for the link, and I will get you the link. Or you can message me on the Patreon, and I'll send you the link there. Because some people, I know it doesn't work necessarily. The link doesn't, it doesn't send them the link like it should. Often it does. I see plenty of people get into the Discord. But make sure your Patreon account is linked to your Discord account. Also, that may be a thing. It pays to be a Class A type personality. Guilty. It just makes me happy to be busy, and I really value all of the things I'm involved with. I value the breed that I'm involved with. Obviously, I'm about to get a puppy from it. I value the Patreon greatly because, you know, like I said, you guys keep me afloat. This is my job now. My main job. I value my Twitch, all the people who show up for my personal stream, and all of you who show up on this stream. You know, all the things, my writing, all these things are things that are very important to me. I have filled my life with the things that are very important to me, and I am super happy. The things that remain are things that are all important. Super, no problem, Smoth. No, I didn't Aerodust, actually. The Reaper paint department is no longer my boat to guide. And that's fine. I mean, I guided it for 17 years, right? So now it is in the hands of other people, and they're doing a great job so far, so I have no complaints. All right, so we want to make these end horn bits look like they're gold caps on the end of the horn. So dragon jewelry. So I'm going to start with a base coat of Shield Brown. Shield Brown's, it looks kind of muted in the bottle, but when you actually put it on, you see it's a very nice golden brown. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I do feel like, you know, I mean, I do the things I'm called to do. And usually the things I'm called to do are things that I kind of feel like I can do, like I can bring something of value, right? And I generally, like, I don't let things clutter up my life if I feel like I'm not bringing value to them and if they're not bringing value to me. And value doesn't mean money. It means like emotional fulfillment and like, I mean, it can mean money like the Patreon, but it also means like, I feel like I'm fulfilling a calling by doing it because the way I teach, I think, is different from other people. And the things I concentrate on are different. And that's what makes Patreons and YouTube channels and all the rest of this stuff so very, very useful, right? Is that everybody, like, there are lots of good teachers out there, and we all teach a little differently. And some people will resonate with you, like their style will and the way they teach, and some just won't. And some you'll get some stuff from, but, you know, they won't be a huge impact on you. And so that's why you should always go around and see what's out there and try different YouTube channels, try different Patreons, try whatever you want. Pursuing the person who is teaching really can give you a leg up. I mean, the added value is for me is just that I know that I'm doing something well that I'm very good at, and that people enjoy it. Like, as long as the thing that makes me happiest at ReaperCon is not, like, you know, winning painting competition awards or, you know, hanging out with everybody. It's actually when people come up to me and tell me that I really have been influential in teaching them, that they, you know, have gotten to be a better painter because of me. Like, that's why I'm in it. That's why I Patreon. That's why I YouTube. It's all that. Which is highly ironic, since as my mother likes to remind me, when she suggested that I become a teacher when I was a teenager, I kind of looked at her and went, gag. Given we were talking about becoming, like, going to school for education and becoming an art teacher, you know, which I'm very glad I didn't do. But here I am, being an art teacher. Sorry, Mom. Yeah, you were right. All right, we're going to let that gold, that base coat dry. It's, as you can see, it's still a little wet. I can't put a second coat on, but I can mix up some more colors. So let me grab some yellows. Could also grab a little bit of orange. We used lantern yellow in her eyes, so we'll bring out the lantern yellow. I might add a tiny bit of sunrise orange to it to see how that works. It is hard, Stephen Mack, because it takes work to be a good teacher. Never think it's something that you come by naturally. Never think that I'm not sitting there outlining these videos and PDFs, just like a teacher does a lesson, before I actually start filming them or writing them. Good teaching takes work. A lot of thought. And I've not always been good at it. Extender. Define extender. On occasion, I use a little extra flow improver if I'm doing really fine detail smoth, but I don't use any other mediums. I don't actually like mediums in most cases unless I'm making a wash. If you go watch my YouTube channel, I've got my fundamentals series talks about additives. So it talks about, like, what I use and when and how. Alrighty, so let's do some shield brown and then put some of this other stuff in it. Just for fun, just to see what... We're going to try a new gold recipe. Why not? Why not, right? Here, let me get back in... I did not want to get that close. I wanted to get in focus. But be aware, Smoth, if you didn't know, every Master Series paint has flow improver already added to it. You don't need to add any additional flow improver. We sell it, and, like, I recommend it if you're doing, like, really fine detail stuff, just because a little extra surface tension breaker isn't a bad thing. So I'm going to use 2 drops of this shield brown, and then I'm going to actually use a drop of sunrise orange and a drop of lantern yellow. Let's see what we can do with some orange in our NMM. I don't know if it's going to work, and I might not like it, Kariniko, so, you know, don't take notes yet. Take notes after we figured it out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I go that far. Sometimes I think it isn't those who've, like, should never have become teachers so much as, like, they may have become teachers for different reasons, like, than other people. And even the most like abrasive teacher I ever met still had students who managed to learn something from them. So I do feel like there are personalities even in the mini painting world that I feel I would have trouble learning from just because their personality would put me off. Their way of teaching would put me off. But that doesn't mean they're bad teachers. Now, if you come to a teacher who is constantly discouraging their students, then I would agree with you. I really feel like if you are an educator, you need to learn to encourage, not discourage. But that is, again, my opinion. And some people thrive in a very critical environment. So I really do think there's all sorts out there, that's for sure. All right, so we've got 2 brown, 1 orange, and 1 yellow. And that's made us a very, very yellowy, rich color. Part of that is that the shield brown is so very yellow itself. It definitely has a slide in that direction, but this is really super saturated. Now, this is much brighter, and right now it's clashing with this because they're very close. So what I want to do to this is I want to put a bit of white in it. Oh, cool. Use the Force, Luke. I like your name. Miniatures Den and Sergio are definitely good ones. I'm trying to think of who else I might endorse for you, but I mean, Aaron and Sergio are both excellent. Ben Comets, I've heard good things about. He's Ben is German, isn't he? Am I right on that? Or is he? I don't remember what country he's from. But Ben does some really beautiful high contrast work, and he's a great guy. He always hands out stickers at the cons. His sticker that he hands out for people says, "All my friends are nerds." So Ben is a great guy. And he puts a lot of time into his stuff. So I would say that Ben is a great person. So this is, in order to get this to work with this, I had to make it further apart. When I just loaded a bunch of very saturated orange and yellow into it, sunrise orange and lantern yellow, it definitely was clashing with the base color. But now, having added white, I've pulled it far enough apart so that it's lighter, so now it can harmonize with its base color. Now, since I am going really, I'm adding some super bright colors into this gold. So when I go dark, I'm probably going to have to use also a saturated brown, probably russet. We'll see. The problem here is that shield brown is itself not a very saturated color. So we're going to have to like kind of tiptoe along this recipe and see if it actually works. Now, however, my brown has dried, so I'm going to put another layer onto the horn. Thanks for Use the Force, Luke, about that. Spelling, yes. It's hard to spell things online. It's like by the time you spelled it, people are asking you to repeat it. So thank you for posting his spelling of his name. He's a very, since you're also following some other very high-end painters, I assume you were looking for expert painters. There are lots of people doing Patreons who are not super, super like high-end competition painters, but they're still great teachers. All right. And probably, honestly, the best place to find those people is to search YouTube for miniature painting. And then see if the person, if you like somebody, if you like their style, see if they have a Patreon. Often they will. Yeah, he's done some really beautiful stuff, Ben has. I like his very, very high. If you look him up on Facebook, you'll see some stuff too. So he does some really beautiful, beautiful work. He's done some beautiful work on busts and bigger monsters. All right, so now I've got a nice solid coat on that horn. Now I can think about doing some highlights, but I also need some shadows, so let's get those mixed up. I'm going to pop the russet brown way over at the other end of the palette. Yeah, Ben does some amazing stuff. He's tops. He's one of the tops in the world, for sure. Patreon's a lot of work, and so if Angel has, like, say, a real job, or he has a job working for Corvus Belli, that takes a lot of his time. I could see why he doesn't. I mean, Patreon, it really is a full-time job, depending on how far you're into it. I know it is a full-time job for me. Like I said, it's always... And weirdly, the longer I do it, the more work I put into it. Like, I spend a lot of time kind of thinking and outlining, like, and planning approaches for different topics. But yeah, the people who don't do Patreon are usually people that have, like, other income streams that are already taking a lot of their time, because it really does take time to have a good Patreon. Oh, you have acquired a dog. Well, you sound like it should not be a congrats, Shadow Raven. I assume you rescued a puppy that did not have that was running loose or something? Oh, it's just planning, like, lessons and, like, outlining videos and looking for topics that I could do, and breaking them down into, like, something that will take an appropriate amount of time, and then shooting and sometimes reshooting. If I don't like the way the video goes the first time, I will reshoot it. Sometimes I've reshot things up to 4 times. And then all the video editing, and then, there's also PDF writing, and if there's PDF writing, then I have to take photos, and sometimes I have to reshoot those too, and then you have to edit those, and then you have to make sure that you're showing what you're talking about in the photos, and yeah, there's stuff. And then there's also upkeep with the email, with the YouTube channel, which definitely is at this point kind of a way to let people know, not only to give added value, but also a way to let people know about my Patreon. So that goes into the Patreon. I funnel that into the Patreon as well, the YouTube. So that has its own videos, its own planning, its own outlining, and its own execution. And sometimes I have to paint specific things for a Patreon lesson, and that takes a long time. Like the one I just did on the Shape series on cylinders, where I was painting parts of the Space Marine and also doing some freehand stuff. I'm going to block in a shadow right under this. So a shadow right under here. And why would we block in a shadow? Well, if you look at it, right, if you look where the light is coming from, the light is definitely cutting off right there along that edge, right? So there's going to be, on metal objects, a line underneath that, like a line of shadow underneath that. And depending on how shiny the metal object is how linear that line will be, or whether it's a blended sort of line. So really I'm going to turn this upside down. And you can see the highlight right there on that edge. See it? See that white highlight? I haven't done a thing, but that is where our white highlight goes on this NMM. This is why it's so useful to have lamps set up around your surface, so you can double check these things if you're not very sure about non-metallic metals and where your highlights and shadows go. Most of the time you can use that lamp to kind of simulate the lighting that you're looking to depict, and then you can work from there. I want to do a little bit of a wet blend here. It depends, Sloth. Keep in mind, I've painted almost everything at this point. There are very few techniques that I have not done at this point in my life on a model. It's most of the time, it's trying to figure out how to explain things, like with the cylinders thing. I had never explained shapes like that before. If I do anything with oil painting, that'll be brand new learning. I'm waiting for my oil paint set to get to me right now. I know a lot of people are interested in that topic lately. So that's, I did oils when I was in college for art, but I have not touched them since, really. So that'll be a whole relearning curve. So you can see that shadow And you can see that it blends back up to a mid-tone here. Yep, that's for sure, Jabberwocky. James is like the pro because he had like 20 years worth of oil painting on canvas before he came to oil painting on miniatures. So just be consistent. The best thing you can do, Shadow Raven, with the dog, remember the dog is adjusting to you too. The best thing you can do is just to get the dog into a consistent kind of routine. Dogs love routine and they feel very sad and upset and unsettled when they don't have one. So if you can give the dog a routine, then it'll help. Hello, Thoramel. It depends on the breed as far as walking daily. And also Shadow Raven's circumstances. I don't know if he has a yard or if they have a yard. Or what the dog is used to. Or what breed it is. So. But yeah, if you do know what the dog's usual routine is, if you can emulate that, that helps. But if you don't know, then you're just kind of going to be flying blind. No fences is the problem, right? Exactly. Be aware that when you let your dog out in the yard, it's not really working off exercise. It's not really exercising. It definitely is exercising like its mind and its nose because it gets to sniff all over and, you know, investigate its world. But most dogs, just like most humans, will not exercise themselves. Depends on how old the dog is as well. It's a lot of different stuff. But if I could give you just one tip to make it a little easier, Shadow Raven, it would be get on a routine. Get in a routine with the dog. And that way the dog has something to kind of cling to. And it'll help to de-stress it so that it doesn't misbehave. Too bad you don't have a human owner to make sure you do it. I know, right? We all have to like learn to become better exercisers of ourselves. So, by the way, you can see kind of that watermark there. That's kind of where the glaze stops. So you can see how it's how a glaze can be a problem. I won't have a problem with this because I'll just paint over it with, I'll blend it into the other side when it's time. So when you do a glaze, how I always say you should slurp off the excess. If you don't, this is what happens. It creeps and then it'll dry in an edge like this. And the only way to fix it at that point is to paint over it. So that's why I say when you do a glaze, always take off all the excess and kind of blend in your edges. Alrighty, gonna block in some light up here. So looking at the top of the horn, I want the entire upper surface to be lighter. Just like we were working on up here on the horn. I do need to thin it just a little bit more. Correct. Rinse your brush, Squeeze the water out of it or dry it on something, and then go back in and pull all the excess glaze off of the surface. I'll be doing a video on glazing for the YouTubes because it's a fundamental technique, but it needs to go up at the same time as layering pretty much because they're hand in hand in my opinion. I'm going to bring a little bit more of this. Also, there are some ridges still in this horn, so I can choose to augment those a little bit if I wish. Now I'm going to mix the next highlight. These days I don't glaze so often, I wet blend, but I definitely glaze the horns. I used to use layering and glazing a lot in tandem, but I'm using a lot of wet blending lately. Wet into wet blending. All right, let's take a brush full of this warm gold color and we're going to make a new highlight with it. I'm going to bring it over here. A couple big fat brushfuls. We're going to put some white in it. We're going to see how yellow it goes. We want gold to have quite a yellow highlight, so yeah, have fun. It's nice having you, Smoth. All right, so that's more of a beige than anything. I need more yellow, so I'm gonna drop another drop of lantern in it. Boop. Yep, that actually would be key in Chaarondar. I agree. That's probably a key concept, is that if you want it to look good, take your time. There's no hurry. All right, so now we're at this stage. So I think I am going to go with this color. I put another drop of white in it, so I am definitely going to put more water into it. All right, dragon. But yeah, I mean, you can see like how much time this is taking me and why I wouldn't paint this entire model on stream, right? Because, yeah, it'd take a long time. Like, I've barely done one side of one horn in 2 days. This is why it's like, if I want my painting to really give back to me, I just slow down and relax and take my time. And try not to make it a point of stress to finish things. Slow down, enjoy your hobby. Gonna continue to put an extra level of highlight here. So the entire top of the horn is lighter, but I also need another level of highlight on this other edge. So the way NMM works is, you know, like shadow up to highlight, bright highlight, shadow up to highlight, bright highlight, shadow up to highlight, bright highlight. That's how the light tends to move around objects like this. So that being the case, and since I'm doing a lot of texture on everything, I may suggest that these horn caps also have a bit of texture. If I don't like it, I can always paint over it. I could just do like, you know, smooth gold, but what fun would that be? The other thing about this is if you get to the end point and you feel like it's not yellow enough, it's not gold enough, you can always glaze over it with something like Saffron Sunset or Lantern Yellow, which will give you a little bit more of that punch. So strengthening that highlight. I use Raphael and Da Vinci Maestro Kolinsky sables. Use the force. I also gotta say that Game Envy put out a series of Kolinskys. I saw them at Adepticon. They were on sale for Adepticon, so I picked up a set since it was on sale for a very good price. And so far, I used the biggest one last night, and I like it. So they're certainly probably, you know, taking a standard brush company and getting them to brand their own brushes, but they seem very serviceable. I don't know what their normal pricing is like. It might just be worth it just buying, you know, buying a Raphael or buying whatever company they're sourcing through directly, but the big brush I got from them, the biggest size, I think it's a size 2, I can't remember. I'd need to go look, but it holds the tip pretty well. Okay. Working on a big bust with it, and the bust doesn't need to be painted like super well. It just needs to be painted nicely, so it was performing pretty well for me. The Reaper Kolinskys, of course, are also a very good, very easy on the pocketbook pricing. And I use the Aught 5, but I think they've been out of stock for a while, so I can't really... That was Game Envy, but that's not what I'm using here. When I want to do really well, use the Force, Luke. I use 2 different brands that I enjoy. One of them is Da Vinci. It was in the tools link there. Da Vinci Maestro Series 10, size 1. This is the long tapering brush I'm using right now. The other company that I like is Raphael. This is my gigantic Raphael. It's a French Kolinsky. This is an 8404, which means it's got a big belly and a tiny little tip. So I like these as well. And then many other people will also mention the Winsor & Newton Series 7, which is their Kolinsky. Okay. Yeah, Da Vinci Kolinskys are grade 1. They're the highest grade of Kolinsky sable, and I like them a lot. I also have been playing with an Escoda Optimo, a Spanish Kolinsky. This one has a different type of shape. I like to experiment with different shapes lately to see, like, you know, how I like them. I haven't had a lot of luck with Escoda in the past, but when I saw that this shape was offered, I decided to give it a try again. But there are a lot of different Kolinsky sables out there. And some will be better than others, and some will just be better for you than others. They tend to have slightly different shapes, slightly different tapers, slightly different thicknesses. The sizing will be different between lines. So the best I can say is figure out, you know, play around with a couple and kind of figure out which brand is your favorite. Yeah, Reaper Kolinsky still out of stock, yeah. Yeah, Game Envy's cool. They also do like the miniature holder. And they do plinths, actually. If you're doing busts and you need a plinth or a nice figure and you want to mount it on a wooden plinth, they've got some plinths. Their miniature holder, Reaper featured in its swag bag for ReaperCon, I think last year or the year before. Swag box, sorry. So I'm building up highlights down here, and then I'm going to come back in and build another highlight. There's a lot of variance in metal. There's a lot of contrast, and so you want to keep an eye on that when you are painting it. I still need a darker shadow right up against this also, or it's not going to look like metal. You bet, Luke. If you are on my Patreon, or if you do in the future, I also have a PDF on brushes. I think it's a $2 PDF. It's from close to the start of the Patreon in 2019. But I talk about the brands I like the best and the sizes and series. So I'm bringing in some russet brown here to bring in a bit of a shadow underneath the horn here. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of my shield brown. Just get it to blend a little bit. So that is drying, but you can see that that shadow is coming in there now. You need shadows for something to look shiny. If you're trying to do non-metallic metal, you must introduce shadow. That's cool. Thank you. Thank you, Use Force. If you like your Winsor Newton, then just use your Winsor Newton. I mean, if you find the brush of your heart, Stephen Mac, just go for it. Like, if that's your brush, like if that shape is excellent and you can do everything you want with it and you're just like, yay, best brush ever, just use it. Go with that. But if you're like, this is cool, but I wonder what this other brush is like, then yeah, then expand your horizons and try a couple different ones. I look to experiment every once in a while, even though I have the brush of my heart. If I hadn't gone out and decided to try the Raphael line, I would have missed out because I actually really like them for some things, and I would never have known if I hadn't tried them. So Kickstarter announcement at the end. Nice. Yeah, I wanted to ask if anybody watched the RPG stream yesterday and what you thought. I need a little bit more dark coming down into this. Because I didn't have time. I was working on stuff, as always. Had to get a video shot and edited. Now I think I'm going to glaze a bit to bring the light up on the bottom part of this. So I'm going to grab my yellow here and I'm going to make a glaze out of it. A lot of glazing. This is a big open area to be trying to do metal in, so glazing is your friend. Haha, you liked it, huh, Kariniko? Cool. It's a flavored D20. See, that doesn't disappoint me. Yeah, vanilla game for testing purposes. That makes sense. See, I don't mind OGL D20s because I feel like they're very accessible. And that way you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And you also don't run into a lot of balance issues like with somebody just throwing together a system. Like you pretty much know how the system is balanced to begin with, and then you can choose to tweak it. So, I don't know. I like it. I like it when that stuff goes. I'm like past the point in my RPG career where I want to reinvent the wheel, and I'm definitely more looking for something that I already kind of know how it works, so I don't have to learn a new rule system. Because I don't have a lot of time to learn a new rule system. But that is purely my take on it. Oh, cool, Twisted Oma. That's neat. All right, so I've got a bit of a glaze there. I wanted to kind of blend in this yellow. I'm going to make a highlight, another highlight. Lots of light. So we have a lot of layers here, a lot of colors I'm mixing. And the reason is that these areas, this gold area is so big. You've got a couple of different options when you're trying to blend something that's a really large flat area. And one of those options is to build a lot of different transition colors between your highlight and your shadow, in which case you can work with a little bit thicker paint and still get a decent transition look. The other option that you can do is to make more space between them, but work with much thinner paint and build up layers of that paint. So that tends to take a little longer, which is why I shied away from it for this. I'd rather build up slightly thicker layers so you guys can see what's going on than sit here and try to layer pale yellow over, dark brown forever. Also with gold, I find doing the lots of different transition colors can help you get a more complex metal. Need to shadow this a bit more. And gold, it can be quite complex color when it starts reflecting things from the environment. So you can get a bit more of that. Really? I loved 4.0. I was one of the weirdos who loved 4.0, and I loved it. The reason I loved it is that I had a bunch of female friends who were trying to learn RPGs, and 4.0 was so easy to teach. So easy to teach. I'm going to just put a little highlight in here. I know I'm in a minority for liking 4.0, but I did. I did for that reason. I'm just starting. It's just starting War Shadow, so I'm about halfway through, but it's taking its time today. I'm not necessarily going for an old gold look at all, but when you're not getting close to your top highlights yet, it looks that way. Used a new NMM gold recipe today as well. So I just want a little bit of this highlight coming in here. Did a little bit of blending. Your group just started a 2E game. Wow, that's the game system. Like, 2nd edition was the game system that I was playing so much D&D through the years where it existed that I pretty much had it memorized. Good memories attached to 2E. That was a lot of what we were playing when I was in college. Cornico, you can get down to the important stuff like role-playing and fumbling every single dice roll, yes. Yeah, I could see that. It was just so easy. Like, it got them into gaming, It made it easier for them, even if it was simple. I did I played a monk in 4E when I played it, and it was really fun and cinematic, so yeah, I have good memories of 4E. I've played every single edition, though, at this point. Played and run every single edition. Although I only played the latest edition in beta, to be fair. We don't have a gaming group right now, so now we can see how this is starting to come in. You can see the light, you can see the highlight, and then it's the shadow right under it, coming back up, and then the shadow, and then coming back up to the highlight. So that's the pattern that we are, with this kind of metal surface, that's the pattern we are repeating. I don't know. I disagree, Deborah, because I totally went for Went for no Thaco systems in there. But then I was a very open-minded role player. All right, we're going to make yet another highlight. Yes, we're endlessly highlighting. But yeah, people are very, very opinionated about D&D. I know that everybody's really, really passionate about it. And so, you know, and a lot of us have like formative memories of playing D&D with our friends. So I totally get why people get so passionate about particular editions. I have good memories of pretty much every single edition. So for me, I'm always interested to see what the latest iteration looks like. All right, so I just went ahead and threw in more Lantern Yellow. See how yellow we're going now. But what you want, if you look at Pure Gold, it has a very yellow highlight. Very, very warm. So we're going pretty much popping it up. Must not have sold very well then, Rax, on that Brawn. I think 5e is a pretty good, like, all-encompassing D&D feel for me, Agent Marvel. Hey, late bloomers just fine. We'll take our nerds any way we can get them. More nerds, please. Alrighty, so now I've got this beautiful bright yellow. Let's see what we can do with it. I may need to thin it a little bit more, but I like how this horn is turning out now. Oh, I see. They canceled the entire... Yeah, totally. It is cool that you can still get the books for everything, so you can play whatever you like, even if it's not supported. A lot of those editions, though, did get a lot of support content, so you can still find that stuff on eBay. I was always more of a homebrew game type anyway, although when I got super busy, I started looking more at content that was pre-made. Because I just didn't have the time to put into like my own world, my own stories as much. So putting a higher highlight right along that edge. And then I'm going to go up to the top and do the same thing. I still need a lot lighter though. This went brighter and a little lighter, but I feel like I'm just doing tiny baby steps at this point. I need to punch it up. So I think I'm going to go and make myself a much higher highlight and then mess around. But notice with every additional highlight how much shinier the surface starts to look. This isn't a very, very light highlight at all, but it's still starting to convey the information. See that? 1983. That's about... No, I started... 1981 was when I first picked up D&D. 1981. And I actually discovered it not because of the basic box sets, but because of the AD&D hardcovers, I believe. Although I did get the box sets. I do remember that my parents got me like the red box for Christmas one year because I had seen it and been fascinated by it. I know, it was a long time ago and I've slept since then. I assume the dragon just like bullied a blacksmith into making it done. Either that or she just like took really like fairly rich gold, like fairly pure gold, and just folded it around her horns. Although she doesn't have arms, this version of her. My version of her. So she probably would have bullied a bunch of dwarves into putting it on. Maybe she even let them live afterwards. Yeah, I mean, maybe she has kobolds and they've just hammered it on. That's why I'm making it rough. I'm not making it super smooth. But kobolds would totally do that. They would decorate their dragon. They would be all about it. That's what we need. We need the kobold tribe that secretly just loves bling. And, like, they decorate. I would, if it were me, I would make up a tribe of kobolds that were like tinker gnomes, but they were tinker kobolds. And every dragon or dragonkin in like the vicinity of that tribe knows that if they want bling, all they have to do is go to these kobolds, and the kobolds will be happy to set them up with some bling. Hey there, Charcoal Kitsune. Awesome. Yay. Honestly, like, I'm going to be taking a very basic, I got a miniature that has a lot of different surfaces on it, Kitsune. So I would say you don't have to. Like, the best I would do is probably to pick up some colors that you can use, although I'll probably concentrate on steel because then you can just apply gold colors to that, and I'll give you some recipes for gold. So just make sure that you've got, like, I think that I'm getting some paints that I'm planning to give away also after the class for people to share. So you don't even really need to have paint. But, and I'll supply a figure. Bring your good brushes. And you really, if you're going to practice anything, practice looking at how light falls on your miniature, like I did here. Like that the upper surfaces are lighter, right? And you can see where the light falls off when there's an angle. Stuff like that. But we're gonna start with, we're gonna be pretty straight up with that. But the hardest part of NMM, when you're not used to thinking about it, is the lighting. Is that you have to imagine how the light falls and paint accordingly. It's like a more pumped up version of like doing overhead lighting on cloth and stuff. But I don't really have, like, right now, I don't have any, like, fun, eventually my fundamentals videos will get to that, but they aren't to that yet because it's a new YouTube series. But what I don't want necessarily is, like, if you go out and, like, try to read up a lot on NMM, then those places may teach it slightly differently than I will, which is fine if you come in with your own ideas. But I don't think there's really any way you need to prep other than to start thinking about lighting. If you don't practice lighting, like really use lighting in your current painting, if you're not looking at a surface and saying what direction is the light falling from and how can I make it look that way on my miniature, like that's where I'd say you need to start. YouTube channel, there you go. Quindy's got it. It's the second link from the bottom. The CUTT, because I don't have my own dedicated link. I'm not big enough yet. But I do have a fundamentals video series, so if you are new to painting or you're intermediate and you want to brush up on some of the basics, then pop over there and look at the fundamentals videos. I'm about to put a new one up on the 1st. We've tackled base coating and washing and additives and my top 5 tips, and we are going to start tackling a whole bunch of different stuff. We're talking about dry brushing at the beginning of the month, but then I also want to tackle some brushes. Or did I do brushes? I might have done brushes. I don't know. Yes, I do tackle some brushes, I think. Boy, I'm losing track, guys. I do so much content at this point. My brain. It is overwhelmed. All right, so I just brought in a higher highlight here. See how that makes it look more dramatic? Anyway, we're going to cover as much stuff as I can possibly cover. Much more specific videos on my Patreon. But you can at least go to the YouTubes, get some free stuff, you know, learn some from some free videos, decide if you like my teaching style. So I'm bringing in another light there. Not as bright as this though. This is definitely my brightest highlight, so I don't want to eclipse that by adding in a significantly bright highlight down here. Just trying to get some of this blended in. Ah. Good. Yeah, for sure, Johnny. I agree. Everybody teaches differently, and some people are like really gonna love like my teaching style, and some people are gonna love Sergio, and some people are gonna love Aaron, and some, you know, it's great that there are so many of us doing things just a little bit different from each other, because then you can always have a chance to come across that person that just describes something in a way that totally clicks with you. Bringing up this highlight again just a little bit higher. You can see it. It's not as bright as the one up top though. That's the key. Yeah, I'm definitely going the very slow dragon painting method. This is why so few top painters paint dragons. It takes a long time. It takes a long time to do a good job, and you're working on it. Like, there we go. We gotta get our under highlight going on more down here, and I need a darker shadow for down here as well. So I'm gonna grab, what have I got? I think I'm gonna grab a little rogue shadow. Yeah, sorry, yeah, we don't allow links so that people don't come in and spam the channel. So if you I appreciate the that you really like my dragon though. Let me see here. I need to balance Mr. Dragon or Ms. Dragon here. She's gonna smile at you for a little bit. I need to mix up this liner color. So we're using Rogue Shadow. I like to use liners for shading NMM because they're a little bit more transparent than paints like Walnut. When you're trying to layer a little bit of transparency, okay. But yeah, the best thing to know going into a dragon is if you're going to paint it a little more quickly. And I totally slowed way down on these horns too, because I wanted to show you guys kind of what I was up to. But if you're going to paint a dragon, like try to figure out what parts you can go faster on. Like we did this wing pretty quickly, all things considered. You know, go faster on and still have it look good. You know, and then maybe block in a lot of it, and then once you've got it all blocked in, then go back and spend extra time lovingly hitting the details. So now you can see how this is working, right? We've got a highlight going to a shadow, blending back up to a highlight, going to a shadow, blending back up to a highlight. I use ceramic only. Wet palette obviously is going to keep your paint wetter for longer. Wet palette enables a very quick blending style. Well palette enables you to keep your paint at a set consistency for longer and allows you to mix your paint to very precise consistencies. Use the Force Luke. I always recommend that people get both. I do say that if you do not have a good grasp of how thin or thick your paint should be for various techniques, then you should probably experiment with your well palette, because you're going to be able to mix a 3-to-1, a 2-to-1, a 1-to-1, a 1-to-2, and you're going to be able to experiment with those and learn how they feel and what you can do with them. Whereas if you try that on a wet palette, it's going to be a lot more challenging. Once you've got paint consistency down, or if you already have a good feel for what you can do with different thicknesses of paint and different transparencies of paint, you can go to that wet palette and totally kick butt with it. That said, I am very much a precision painter. I like to know exactly what paint consistency my paint is at so that I can execute on a very high level. And so for me, I can use a wet palette, but it is not nearly as enjoyable as the well. That is a very, very simple breakdown. Yeah, you need this paint. The palette I use is the one I recommend. I don't recommend the ceramic palettes with the gigantic wells. These are small enough that you can use 6 or 8 drops of paint plus water, and it'll stay wet for like an hour and a half. It's really a good palette that way. Oh, time check. I just realized we have a time check. Okay, so let's put a super white highlight up here along the horns so that we can finish our bling. Hello, Betty. We're just at the end of our stream. But yeah, that's the reason I like a well palette. It's because I'm a control freak. And I like to be able to control my paint consistency to essentially dial it into exactly where I want it to be and be able to work with it at exactly that level for at least a half an hour. I don't have to sit there and hand mix every brush full of paint to be getting the effects that I want. Especially if I'm layering. The more wet blending I do, the more I could probably go to a wet palette. There we go. So just that bright white line down the horn brings in more of that light. But that is why I prefer the well. Yeah, I like to control my environment as far as the paint goes. And I really like to just get in the zone and not have to worry. Like, wet palette drives me nuts because I have to remix every single brush full. And I want, like, often, although I'm doing a lot of texture on these horns, often I want smooth blends or something close to it. And that's harder to do on a wet palette unless you're doing wet blending. But yeah, I mean, it's just a different thing, and each person is going to find their own comfort zone as far as this stuff goes. So that's the reason I have for doing the well. The well used to be what everybody used, and then it totally fell out of fashion when the wet palette came in. And now there are very few top painters who work with a well. I might be the only one. Oh no, that's not true. Kirill uses a well. He uses a wet and a well back and forth, which I think is the best strategy. To have the resources of both. I have a wet palette in the other room that I use very rarely. Depends on what I'm going to be doing. Just going to put a little texture here and then we can call it off. So a little bit of texture underneath. Now we can back up. And we can see our horn, our blingy horn, our blingy blingy horn. Yeah, don't use plastic. Use the porcelain. Yes, it does absolutely matter. The porcelain palette is the superior. Not even ceramic, but porcelain specifically. Use the force. I would not recommend any other well palette because this I can clean up to, like, you know, shiny white at the end of the paint session. But plastic and metal are almost impossible. It's the glass-like coating. It's because this is like the coating that is just very, very slippery. And you can scour it without, you know, really marring the surface. You can use a green scrubby, which is what I do. And that essentially enables you to clean it up almost perfectly at the end of a session. Whereas all those other well palettes, the paint's just going to stick. And the more you scrub at them, the more it's going to stick because you're making abrasions in the surface, and that's what gives paint something to cling to. Yeah. Highly recommend this particular one. Somebody had found one similar to this in Europe, but I can't remember where it was from. Yeah. Yep, Ephemeraldi. I'm there, and that's why I don't use it. Like, every once in a while I whip out my wet palette and I force myself to use it just to keep in the game. But it tends to just, like, be frustrating to me. Because I would much rather just mix up my paint and go. I could see, though, how once you've mastered paint consistency, a wet palette could be very freeing. And could make it very fun to paint when you're just like throwing different colors onto something and maybe organically mixing and getting some cool and interesting hints of color here and there. I could totally see how it lends to a painterly style. A lot of people like it for that reason. They're not as controlling as me. So yeah, there we go. We have a dragon with bling, guys. So tomorrow, for our last day of dragon, I'm gonna work on some scales here on the neck. So that we can tackle how you would paint these big scale areas to mimic the iridescent look that we've got on the face. So yeah, maybe we'll work. I guess there's a little bit more room on this side, but we'll probably work on this side and see what we can do. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, there's if you type in 28 well ceramic or porcelain palette, I think there's a lookalike outside of the US. I just don't remember where from. Use the Force. Yeah, so yeah, last day of Dragon tomorrow, guys. Then we go back to our regular rotation with Centaur on Monday. Although Dragon may sneak back in here and there when I feel draconic. But yeah, so she's, I think her bling is actually perfect. I really like having the gold tips on the horns. I think that adds a lot of character. And, Amazon UK have some. That's good. Thanks, Karniko. But yeah, so I think she's turning out really well. It's fun. It's been fun. The head is always the most fun part to paint. So yeah, we'll tackle some of these big scales tomorrow. Alrighty, no Crafty Creative, but 2 p.m.ish Central for the RPG stream. Alrighty. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you so much for all coming along and hanging out with us this morning. And I hope to see you tomorrow morning as well. Bye-bye.